Hi, it's Judy Love Bowman, aka Drjudionline, here with an abbreviated version of Between the Pear Trees, the case for reparations in America. Tree B, Black America. Tree A, White America. Between the Pear Trees. I have a list, and I hope you can add to them and vote for people and re-elect people who will support the case for reparations. Appendix I in the P15 Passbook, America's Passport for Unity, has a list of things that we need from the government, which was published in 2015. Then I have a list of things that we've added to the list, and I want your suggestions as well. Appendix I from the P15 Passbook, what Black people in America want from the United States government. Although I cannot speak for all Black people in America, we currently have a movement in America with several different names, bases, organizational structures, etc. We have civil rights organizations and more recently Black Lives Matter. When presidential candidate Hillary Clinton asked Julius Jones, founder of Black Lives Matter, Worcester, Massachusetts, what Black people want, he had good ideas. Although Jones mentioned that all lives matter is in opposition to Black Lives Matter, I disagree. All lives matter. At the same time, the urgency of addressing these critical concerns cannot be overemphasized. Otherwise, the next generation will need to address the same issues we face today. Ms. Clinton mentioned changing policies and changing hearts. She said she could not necessarily change hearts. She said we may change some hearts, but we have to change laws. I believe we need to do both, change policies and laws and change hearts. Hashtag more love, or as President Obama said in Charleston, South Carolina, hashtag grace. With regards to policies, Black Lives Matter. Black everything matters. We will need a united think tank to hone these points. However, I welcome your comments and additions to the following lists. 1, the United States government should pay reparations in the form of tuition, housing down payments, tax relief, and or some other form to all descendants of slaves, many of whom are living in prisons or government housing. There are more men incarcerated today than were enslaved in 1850. An example for the need for reparations is the parallelisms between the Dodge Motor Company and the progress of Black people in America. The first Dodge was built in Detroit, Michigan in 1914. 18 years earlier, Jim Crow segregation was legitimized by Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. Supreme Court ruling, which forced Black people to use separate and usually inferior facilities. In 1913, 1 year before the first Dodge automobile was built, the NAACP organized to oppose President Woodrow Wilson's introduction of racial segregation to the federal government policy, offices, and hiring. Since the federal government was segregated, racist, and biased at a time during the Great Migration, 1914 to 1920, and during a time where mainstream industry was growing, the government owes it to the descendants of slaves and the descendants of Jim Crow segregation to help level the playing field. Number 2, the United States government should work to bring jobs from Mexico and China, for example, and assign them to some of the Black and poor people who are incarcerated so that they can support themselves and the children and families they left behind. One 26-year-old inmate who was sentenced to 400 years has 2 young children. He can work in a government-operated factory and earn money, even if it's 50 cents per day, to let his children know that although he has made mistakes, he is still involved in their lives. Number 3, private and public prisons, which are the largest delivery of mental health services in America, should provide a treatment plan for each inmate, which should include mental health care as well as holistic development. Doctoral students at state colleges can be awarded grants to develop the conceptual frameworks, data collection, analyses, coding, validity checks, and evaluations. Number 4, the United States needs to put an end to the end of police terror. Police the police, and hand down life sentences for homicidal police officers, Black and white, who abuse their power. Specifically, each jurisdiction should have federally funded body cameras and dash cameras. Further, the film from these cameras can only be removed by a federal agency with a code, which will release it without discretionary editing to a state review board, whose members are both police and civilian review board members. The boards will operate similar to jurors in the court system. Board members will review films just as jurors witness trials. Future presidential administration should continue and build on the work of President Obama's task force on 21st century policing. 5, the United States government should launch a federal investigation of all police shootings with particular emphasis on police homicides. 6, the United States government needs to undo the 2013 Supreme Court damage to the Voting Rights Act and have a federal standard for voting. 7, the United States government needs to ensure the funding of prenatal, preschool, and public school guidance programs for underprivileged citizens. Then I have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 left blank for you to add to this list. This was from 2015 when this book was published, the P15 Passbook. The full book is on YouTube, the video book, Drjudionline. Read it to you there. Now, let's continue the case for reparations. Again, we're between the Pear Trees. Continuing from the list that we started in P15 Passbook, we are continuing with reparations. We need reparations because of the mental, physical, psychosocial, emotional, financial, sexual abuse, and murder that has been visited upon us over the past 400 years. That is 401 years too long. With reparations, this pear tree or apple tree or whatever type of tree it is can be moved up and out of the shadows of this large tree, which is absorbing all of the sunshine and nutrients so that this too can thrive. We can't go back and repossess, resurvey, and reclaim land in an orderly fashion, but we can ask each local, state, and national political office holder and candidate for 2020 and every year hereafter to support reparations for Black people based on systemic racism, PTSD, and discrimination. Write them, call them, email them. We need the guidance and direction from the Congressional Black Caucus, which my mentor, the Honorable Shirley Chisholm, helped to establish. So in addition to the list from the P15 Passbook, 1, a $5,000 per month, $5,000 per month for each African American as a form of disability payment. No, we're not disabled, we're differently able. For PTSD and post-traumatic stress disorder, Bakari Sellers calls it post-traumatic slavery disorder. For PTSD and for not being at the table when all of the land and territories of America were being surveyed, claimed, and established, and for discrimination and debasement for 401 years. Number 2, free tuition and or student loan forgiveness. 3, mortgage assistance, similar to the Veterans Package. 4, free health care, and in light of the racism in medical delivery systems, permission to record all medical appointments and second-party verification for all prescriptions and testing on children and adults. 5, free residential and outpatient dual diagnosis centers with African American Christian caregivers and or caregivers who are sensitive to diversity and have hearts of love, Christ's love. This way, there's no need to demystify the Black race. One therapist said, well, I understand Blacks because my dad had sharecroppers. One therapist said, well, I pray so I don't have to take all the problems home. We need sensitive caregivers. Since jails and prisons are the largest mental health delivery system in America, and since the farther we go through the criminal justice system, the poorer and blacker it gets, I propose that the clinicians at the facilities will work with local magistrates and judges for referrals to certain facilities rather than jail or incarceration. This is where we need your help, Van Jones, Ben Crump, Iyanla Van Zant, Dr. Phil, and so forth. We need people in authority from Tree A to help us every step of the way. We need people from Tree B to help us every step of the way. Hashtag between the pear trees. Hashtag reparations 2020. 6, free retirement living with advisory boards from historically Black colleges and universities, which are generally concentrated in the Southeast and staffed with caring Black caregivers. And since the HBCUs are primarily concentrated in the Southeast, we can have other students who can qualify. Because when they get free tuition or tuition reimbursement or student loan forgiveness. Even if they have free tuition, the students will need a work-study job to help with other expenses, and they can be employed at these free retirement living centers. Hampton University has one of the best nursing programs in America. We have Meharry Medical School. We need clinicians, nurses, retired nurses, pharmacists, and physicians to consult with pastors and clinical teams so that our seniors who have endured discrimination can be treated with dignity and exceptional care. So then 7 and 8, you can fill in the blanks on this. Until all of this comes to pass, until the reparations come to pass, we can concentrate on BTA, Bowman's theory of advancement, as opposed to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow suggests that we have to have our base needs met before we can self-actualize. BTA, Bowman's theory of advancement, suggests that we can do all these things simultaneously. So we don't have to wait for reparations or proper housing or proper education before we self-actualize. We can do it all simultaneously. The complete books, I present Bowman's theory of advancement in Peaches, Womanist Thoughts on Finding Peace, Overcoming Peril, and Tapping Power. And the case for reparations begins in the P15 Pass book. I read both of these books and video books on Drjudionline. Thank you for joining me. Please subscribe, please share, and let's hold our elected officials accountable on the local, state, and national level to vote for and help draft legislation for reparations. There was some search committee started 10 years ago, and it's gone nowhere. Now with the Black Lives Matter and the recent civil unrest, it's come back to view. The time is now. Martin Luther King mentioned the fierce urgency of now, Reparations 2020. And go back, I encourage you to listen to the full message, Between the Pear Trees. Black America, 1865, when we were first able to vote. White America, 1776. Look at the difference. Let's close the gap between the pear trees. Reparations, 2020.